Okay, this is my professional book review for EDCI 786. So the book that I chose to read and review was called Focus in High School Mathematics, Fostering Reasoning and Sense-Making for All Students, which was edited by Marilyn Strutchens and Judith Quander. And this was published by the National Council of Teachers of Mathematics. So take a moment to think back on your high school math experience. Your memory of it is probably similar to mine. And mine was we would watch our teacher work out a few math problems, and then we would replicate the process the teacher demonstrated for us on similar problems for the rest of the class. The focus on this model of teaching, or in this type of classroom, the focus was on getting the right answer, right? That demonstrated that we were successful in the class if we could just simply get the right answer. Didn't matter if we understood what we were doing, as long as we could replicate the steps given to our teacher, we were good. In a math class that emphasizes reasoning and sense-making, things are going to look quite a bit different. The teacher is more of the guide on the side than the sage on the stage. If you've heard that phrase before, and the thinking is handed over to the students. You'll notice under the what the teacher is doing column that most of the tasks that are given to students will be ones that allow for multiple entry points. The teacher is rarely answering questions directly, but instead they are eliciting student thinking by asking leading questions. Success for students in this classroom deals much more with the process students take to solve a problem than just the final answer. So finding a new and interesting way to solve a problem, or discovering the mistake that was made and explaining it would be more evident of success for students than, again, simply just getting the right answer. So the book contains 6 chapters that are each written by a different author. Chapter 1 sets up the premise of the whole book, which is why reasoning and sense-making is more beneficial to students than being in a math class that is more traditional, focusing on memorizing algorithms to get a correct answer. The following 3 chapters, 2, 3, and 4, are going to look at how teachers can, or giving teachers tips to elicit reasoning and sense-making for the diverse students that we teach. So chapter 2 focuses on how we can do that for English language learners. Chapter 3 is for students with disabilities, and chapter 4 is for advanced students. Chapter 5 discusses how schools and districts can use data to fairly place students in math classes by other means other than at-risk models. And then finally, chapter 6 is on how departments and schools, the whole building, can work together to give students across a building or district a high-quality math education using reasoning and sense-making. So this book was full of applications. There was so many things to take away from this book, and it was kind of overwhelming. So I really just focused on one thing that I could do. But really, just to summarize, of all the different things we can do to meet the needs of diverse students that we teach, this book pointed out that the common theme across all of that is to expect students to reason and make sense of the mathematics that's presented to them. And the one strategy that I tried to accomplish this was assigning group roles to students whenever they were working on something as a group. What this did, assigning individual roles to each member of a group, it forced students to be engaged, and it gave everybody the opportunity to think, as opposed to before, it might just be one student that's doing all the thinking. So the 4 roles were facilitator, which their job was to keep students on track and make sure everyone was doing what they had to be doing. The team captain was in charge of making sure that anyone who shared was justifying their thinking and trying to convince everyone else in the group of the truthfulness of what they were saying. The third role was resource manager, and they were responsible for getting help from the teacher if the group got stuck, or getting materials that could help them accomplish, the term figuring out the problem. And then finally, the reporter, their job was to make sure that everyone was writing everything down that was shared in the group. So at first, when I did that, I only have actually done this for 2 class periods. And the first class period, for some of my students, there was a little bit of pushback. But really, I was really very impressed with the level of engagement students had. And it's definitely something that I am planning on using again. So again, this book was Focus in High School Mathematics, Fostering Reasoning and Sense Making for All Students.